Hello everyone. So continuing in this series about men and depression. In the last video, I introduced a cycle that was unique to my experience with depression, which was basically how ignorance, fear and shame, shame and fear and ignorance in no particular order really worked together to keep me in depression. And so I want to share a personal story. It's about 2.5 years old, but before I do, going into that season, I certainly became more aware of the depression. But as I stated previously, the ignorance around really what it is and the fear to face it and the shame related to me as a man, and I think it's very common. Men need to be strong and men can't be weak. Men can't admit weakness. That was all at play for me in a big way. And so going in to about 2.5 years ago, that was just happening in no particular order. It wasn't like something happened and I felt fear, or something happened and I felt shame. It was just perpetually happening. Nothing needed to happen for me to feel depressed within that cycle. About 2.5 years ago, I was at home on a Sunday afternoon with my youngest son, who would have been about 8.5 at the time. And at that time was still going through the end of a very painful divorce. And so he had 2 adults around him that were doing stuff, saying stuff, going through stuff. And this idea of depression and how ignorance worked with fear and shame in this cycle really showed up that day. We were upstairs in this room playing and talking, and at some point he started talking and about what was going on around him. And a little bit after that, he sort of balled up and started to cry. And it was at that moment that it all clicked, that I could see the weight, the crushing weight of, number one, what was going on around him that he had no control over and really couldn't communicate much about. Number 2, how my depression really, and really how my depression was affecting him because of my ignorance and my fear and my shame as it related to depression was now affecting him. Through the tears and the moment, all I could do was just sit in it with him. There was nothing I could say. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the words. I couldn't tell him things were necessarily going to be better on the inside, because I didn't even know what was going on the inside of him. And that's when it clicked. And I could finally see through his ignorance and his shame and his fear, my own. And so, Renee Viter brought up, on the first post about, how depression affects others. Certainly it affected my ex-spouse in ways that, I don't even know about. I'm sure stuff I could sort of guess and probably be close. But when it showed up, when my depression brought about because of my ignorance, fear, and shame showed up in my youngest son, that's when it hit me right here. And that's when I decided to do something different than traditional therapeutic approaches and traditional approaches to face and dealing with a depression. So I just share that to let you in, go a little bit deeper, because I understand that external reasons for an internal change are not always sustainable, right? If we're going to make a change on the inside, we're going to do it for someone else. But when it's your own blood, when it's your kid, and you are helpless to help them because of your ignorance or your fear or your shame, that was the turning point. Thanks for your time. See you soon.